I will tell you though, so this is what's so wild. So we're having the time of our lives. We went on a hot air balloon. We went hiking in Grand Teton. We did this ceremony. Like we did, I told you I've been like really pushing the edges for myself on substances and ceremony. And just like, I was just straight edge forever. And then I turned 40 and I was like, I guess I do drugs now, which is just shocking. So shocking to me. Even just saying that, I'm like, ooh, I just said that. Anyway, so we had this ceremony, but before that happened, we're having the time of our lives. And I'm there with like my amazing husband. He's healthy. Finally, he can walk, like all, our kids are happy. Our business is bigger than it's ever been. Just things are really good. And I find myself totally spiraling. Like in my mind, I was like suddenly picking him apart and rehearsing how I was going to leave him. And I know enough to know that I have done this in every serious relationship in my history. So I was like, fuck, here we are again. This isn't the first time I've done this in my marriage. And we were sitting at the pool. I mean, the most exquisite like view you've ever seen, the most exquisite, everything perfect. And Mike's like, what's going on with you? Like, I can feel you over there. Is everything okay? And I was like, no, but everything that's going on with me is in me. And I'm just gonna, you do you, and I'm gonna be over here handling myself. So I went back to our room and I just laid down on the bathroom floor and I closed my eyes and I just said to God, like, help me, like, take this away. I don't want to, like, why am I doing this? Like, if I need to leave, fine, tell me I need to leave. But like, this is so brutal because I'm torturing myself. And like, I don't want to do this anymore. And right in that moment, it was just like, my prayer was answered so fast. And I just burst into tears. And it was like, oh, sweet thing. Like you are receiving more love and more safety than you have ever received from anybody before. And of course, you're just doing everything you can to keep it away because it feels unsafe, because it's just unfamiliar. And I was like, oh, it's just my nervous system. It's just my nervous system blocking what I've not known before. Because we are reaching these levels of like, the better it gets, the better it gets. And then the better it gets, the more crazy my mind can get. And this little pattern that I do. And so it was so beautiful to just then be able to go out to dinner with Mike and just be like, hey, so remember when you could feel my toxic energy? Like, here's what was happening inside. And I just want to promise you that I'm going to keep doing my work. And I just need you to promise me that you're going to keep doing your work and that, like, you know, neither of us is going to give up. And it was really beautiful. So that's the latest.
I want to pause there because this is such an under-discussed piece of the reality of love, which is that as soon as our nervous systems receive more love and intimacy, as soon as our nervous systems receive more love and intimacy, like my brain is working. My brain is working. Yeah. We're here. When our nervous systems receive more love and intimacy than we are coded to believe is safe, this
like try to sabotage
wall kicks in. Mama Gina calls it a hate machine.
Oh,
she's like, the hate machine kicks in. And you're just like, get the fuck away from me. But the thing is instead of saying, oh, my nervous system hit its limit of love, we start to believe that there's something so horrible about the person in front of us or the relationship.
Or ourselves or whatever brand of self-sabotage we participate in. And it feels so real.
So real.
It feels so real. And like, because our external reality is just a reflection of what's going on inside us, I can easily look outside and like start to think of everything that's wrong with my kids, everything that's wrong with my business, everything that's wrong with my marriage, everything that's wrong with my house, everything that's wrong with Miami. Like, it's very easy to see through colored glasses when that's what's going on internally. But like, I'm so grateful to be able to, I guess, I don't know what it is, maybe have done enough, have enough work on board, whatever, to like have the moment at least that I can be like, okay, if this is true, this can be true. But like, if it's not true, God, can you help me? Because this sucks. And I'm torturing myself on the most beautiful vacation I've ever been on in my life. And anybody listening with kids knows that like 6 days away with your spouse without your children is so precious. I was like, I better not fuck this up with that, with that. And so I'm so glad that you just articulated like it's not talked about enough. And I don't think I really got it as viscerally until that moment. And so not long after, I think it was like 4 days after that, we were driving from Indiana to Buffalo, as you do, on a road trip from Mike's family's house to my aunts and uncles, a good Midwestern tour. And the kids were in the back watching a movie. And Mike and I were listening to you and Regina on your podcast. And we kept having to pause it. And like, I would look at him and we would discuss. It was like couples therapy via podcast, where we were able to really also seen reflected in both of your stories. And that's why it's so important, like the group programs that you run. It's so important to have girlfriends. It's so important. So we don't think that we're the only one who does this. And just to hear, your story and Regina's story about how this had played out. And I've known Regina since, I showed up at her brownstone when I was 22, like, it's so good. Like we go so far back, but just to hear these women who I love and to hear how I'm not the only one. And I will be honest, I had this friend at my wedding. It was so beautiful. She said, the night before I got married, she said, my vow to you is that I will never stop asking you how you and Mike are. Because what happens is we've been painted this picture of the fairy tale ending, right? Like all the movies end with the wedding. And I will just tell you, it is not a fairy tale after that. Like the wedding is not the end. It's the beginning or whatever. You don't have to get married. That's irrelevant. But like that moment of, okay, we're committing, we're beginning, we're going. Sure, we had hard things happen up before then, but like it just only continues. And I loved that she keyed into that. She was a divorced woman and this assumption that we have culturally where we don't ask anymore. And it's assumed that if you're married, you're all set. It's like, no.
I also believe there are dharmic flavors to partnership and dharmic flavors to what our lessons are in life. And part of this is knowing yourself, right? So there are like rainbow and fairy tale relationships.
Totally.
Although I've never found a perfect one ever. Yeah. And most of the couples that project themselves as being the most happy and most perfect, and I have a range of different couples that I talk to all the time. They are often not being as meticulously honest about what's going on inside. I've also seen that my friends with deeply happy childhoods who were profoundly loved suffer a little bit less, but not across the board, right? They can have a little bit more happiness in their childhoods. And I also have some even at Burning Man, I was just with one of my friends, the most idyllic childhood, right? And another one of my friends, the most idyllic childhood. They were both unquestionably loved, unquestionably safe, grew up in nature, grew up with earth mamas, grew up with happy parents, right? And they're both just coming out of fucked up, painful relationships, right? So
you just never know.
Hard, painful, difficult, right? And the amount of joy, again, it's a similar threaded lesson through this whole podcast, which I love, that I see a couple like you and Mike in when you find each other is no more or less than a couple that was happy the entire time. Yeah. You guys getting lost and healing and finding each other has as much beauty in it as a couple that's on a joyride. And I spent a lot of time asking myself, well, how do you know if you're in a difficult relationship? How do you know if you stay in and do the work? How do you know if there's a rainbow unicorn partner out there that you could just get on a fucking joyride with, right? And that, should I stay or should I go, tortures us, right? And back in the day, if you think about the model of relationship that's been predominant in human history since we started really prioritizing the pair bond, right? It's chosen for you when you're young and you make peace with it, right? That has actually been the dominant model of relationship. And I'm not sure that people are less happy, but they have to be doing the work to continue to choose in, right? If you just get together and go to sleep, there's a whole lot of misery in that. when you get together and do the work, there's a tremendous amount of beauty in that. And I myself have been like, when do you know when to stay and when do you know when to go? And again, it comes back to that, what feels true. Because nobody can tell me. No one can tell me whether my painful, fucked up relationship that I'm thinking of leaving, as long as it's not horribly violent and toxic. Like, we're not talking about those where it's like, get the fuck out, you're damaging yourself. We're talking like a good hardship relationship where like, it's like you're saying, you've got these cycles of illness, or some people have cycles of debt. Some people have cycles of, like hardship that one has, goes into depression, right? And like the relationship is hard, not because it's horribly toxic or actually violent, in which case you should actually leave, but it's just challenging, right? Or do I go look for the fairy tale as best as the fairy tale can be? And that, again, the only thing I know is that you sit in the stillness of your heart and you listen to what's true, because some of us have relationship paths in this lifetime that are about facing illness together, that are about facing challenge together, that are about facing heartbreak together, that are about facing cheating together, right? Yeah. And we might not want that. But if it's true for us to go through it, the redemption on the other side, every couple that I have talked to, that I know that I've interviewed, who knew it was true and did it, even if it was hard, is so fucking grateful. And then we've got the unicorn couples, and they found that and they chose that. And a lot of those, honestly, they've been together a lot less time. I know more couples that have been together 10 plus years, and they were in hard relationships and they did the work, and the joyride came from sticking it out and doing the work, not from being a young couple, young in the terms of how long they've been together.
And I think what's so beautiful about being in a long-term relationship is, if you are with someone who is also working and growing and changing, is like refinding each other. I mean, we're having a connection and an intimacy and like the best sex of our marriage or of our relationship a decade in, 2 kids later. And I mean, and like years of illness and injury, like it's just like, wow, that's amazing. And we just keep like, we just keep digging in and staying open. And also, we also had this one moment also with our therapist where Mike was just like totally covered in his eczema. And there really weren't a lot of parts of his body that weren't covered. And I'll be perfectly honest, it was just gross. Just gross. It like hurt my body to look at it. I would have this vagus nerve response of like, I'm one of those people, when I see wounds, I kind of get like, ugh. And so obviously like our connection and intimacy was not super present at that time, because it also hurt him for me to touch him. And so our therapist was like, okay, so just like, is there a place on your body, Mike, that she could touch that would not hurt? And there was just this one part on his leg. So he was like, okay, you can touch me right here. So I put my hand on his leg, and he had us look at each other in the eyes and just be there and just breathe and just like be and breathe and touch. And in that moment, with like all the stuff and all the oozing and all the whatever, like I just looked in his eyes and I could just see, like, I just saw God. I just saw God like shining out of his eyes. And I think that too has been so helpful for me, is to come back to like, he is an expression of the divine. I am an expression of the divine. Our children are an expression of the divine. Like, we are here in service to that. All of the logistics and the bits and bobs of our life are somewhat immaterial, though I will say, like, Mike is the king of logistics and makes all of it so much easier. Like, he just like holds it down in that way. But all of that is largely an illusion. And what's true is what I saw shining out of him. And that's the part of me that I try to evoke as much as possible, to be with him and to meet him. And then when I'm in my spin, to come back to remember that is who he is and that is who I am. And does that mean we'll be together forever? I don't know. Although the day after we got married, I did see our entire life flash before our eyes. And I saw myself like grieving him. And I was very old and I was with our kids. So like, I think so, but we never know. But I know I want to play full out for the time we have, for as long as we have, in service to life force that comes, that animates both of us.
And I will say that I know so many couples who are having the best sex of their life 10 years in, truly. Even at Burning Man, I supported this one couple and they've been together 11 years. And they came back the next morning and they were like, we fucked like we've always dreamed of 11 years, you know? And like, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. They do the work. They face the hardships. They have excruciating conversations with each other. I don't know a single couple that is in joyride happiness who has not done the work individually and together. And I think that is the main thing that our community is becoming an example of, because I think most couples don't do the work because they're afraid they'll break up. And you
Totally.
It's like you have to face that you might break up, because again, are you doing it to stay together or are you doing it because it's true? And if you're doing it because it's true, then you have to include breakup as a possibility. That gives you the courage to face the full spectrum of possibility and say, I'm going to do it, to know the expression of myself in this love and in this partnership. I'm going to do it because doing the work in this lifetime is what gives me satisfaction rather than sticking my head in the sand. And the couples I know that find the courage to do that level of work are the ones who get to say, we're having the best sex ever, the deepest intimacy ever after 10 years, 11 years, 12 years. There was a couple at Burning Man that was 17 years in, and they found each other in a deeper, more powerful way. So it's a testament of doing the level of work, letting go of the fairy tale, but then also realizing that maybe the fairy tale is finding each other through the cycles of life, finding each other through the hardship, finding each other through overcoming our nervous system's upper limit on how much love we thought we could have. And that's the fairy tale.
Totally.